Okay, hello guys, we're back with another Silo video, season 2, episode 5. If you've been keeping up with me, this is my time to let you know I didn't do an episode 4 video because I was out on a trip for a while, and it was like 4 days after when I came back, or 5, something like that, and I was like, there's no point in making the video, so I didn't. But I watched it, I still have all the knowledge, and at least one thing that I can think of from that episode is very important to this, and obviously that episode will have a lot important for the future, but we got a lot to get into. I will speed through this because it's a lot, but first we start with the end of last episode with Knox and Shirley getting chased. There's a cool shot of showing the silo, I guess showing around the silo, people gathering up, more and more people on each level hearing about the murder, the false murder, and coming down to chase them. And then somehow they got behind a wall, I guess, in one of the levels, and they're sitting here for a little bit, but they come up with the plan, and apparently Carla has some, I guess she's associated with some porters, but they need to get down 2 more levels to get there. Then after this, we go to Sims and his wife, who talk about knowing him, if Bernard knows that it's him that called for the impeachment of Judge Meadows. But right as they're talking this, Bernard is in the kitchen of their home. I guess the son let him in. You should teach him some things, but he explains how he sees his job in a different perspective than anybody, and asks, I guess Sims's wife if she ever gets any discussions about Sims's work, and she's like, no, I'm not much interested in that anymore. And then Bernard asks for a copy of the pact. Bernard talks with Sims, says he's pissed. Basically, I mean, he's didn't want to kill Mary because, I mean, they obviously had some history. Judge Meadows was one of the only people that he actually felt he could, I guess, be vulnerable with, who actually stood up to him, and who we saw he let her stand up to him. They had some sort of relationship in history, but now she's dead because of the pressure Sims put with an impeachment. And basically Bernard tells Sims that he's no longer going to be the head of Judicial, but he's now going to be judge, so he needed the pact for that to swear him in as judge. We go back to the main 4, Carla, Walker, Knox, and Shirley, who are still running, and this is kind of the same formula as last season, the last half of last season, where Juliet was on the run. It creates a sense of stakes, and just I guess that's what you need for a story. You need stakes, and they're just doing the same formula. But they get to the porters, to a guy named Calvin. He says it's going to cost them if they want his help, and he says he wants something that belonged to Juliet Nichols. Then we go back to Juliet in their silo, which I believe is 17, and she explains that she has her firefighter suit from last episode, but didn't manage to get a helmet and does not want to go back there again. And then she asks how the lights are on, because the generator or power must have been flooded by now. But Solo explains how there's an IT has a power source from the outside, and I will get into that more later, but it looks like every silo might have IT power from the outside as well, so I'll talk about that more when we get to that. But Solo explains how the Raiders decided to blow up the mechanical area to flood mechanical, and explains that the water's rising every moment. That's the first we've heard of it. The water's actually rising, that in 10 months IT will be soaked, and in 13 the entire silo will be, which is very interesting. But Solo explains how he wants her to go underwater to the level 30 to maybe possibly fix this generator, maybe stop the water from rising. But Juliet says, no way, I need to get to this suit, I need to get out of here. And I mean, he was very aggressive about going to 30, and she was kind of rude about getting out of here. So I was thinking, he's a fragile man. Juliet needs to be nicer to him. And we'll talk about that more later as well. The location of Shirley, Knox, Walker, and Carla are revealed on location 70. Calvin has given them away, so they're on the run again. But we go back to Paul Billings, who has a new message from Rick Amundsen. I don't know, but this is him learning that Simpson's is a judge and Meadows is dead. Him and Deputy Hink learning this for the first time. And we go back to Walker, who we revealed didn't give Juliet's thing to Calvin, or didn't give the wrench or whatever it was, the pliers. It was actually her own, but I think that's funny. But they decide to split up in pairs, that Shirley and Knox should go, the ladies should stay. They sit down at a bar while Shirley and Knox leave, and they are both sitting there, but Carla says the mechanical's gonna need Walker, and she's right. So Walker leaves, but before she fully leaves, she comes back, plants a kiss on her, and then leaves, which is nice. I guess it might be the last time they see each other, but yeah. But then we go to Dr. Nichols, who we haven't seen in a bit. He's helping people who are hurt from the riots. I guess people just hurt each other and no riot, which makes sense. He helps them, then he meets Paul's wife. They said her name, I'm sorry, I forgot, but Paul Billings' wife. And here we see Judicial taking him in for some reason. Then we go to Bernard's office, where Dr. Nichols has been taken, and we see here that Bernard has a bunch of Juliet's things. And Bernard has Dr. Nichols in this area and says he's here to just give back Juliet's things, and explains this. And then Dr. Nichols explains that he's helping people, and Bernard asks him why he isn't helping the movement. Why wouldn't he help the movement? A man like him helping the people in the riot should help the movement to restore order to the silo. Dr. Nichols is like, and if I would say no? Bernard's like, why would you say no? And we get a very, very compelling speech. One of the best monologues, I guess, of the show, kind of encompassing what rebellion means to these people. It's kind of similar to Andor. I forgot who it was had a speech like that. But he explains how the Silos took his family, that the reason he was helping people after the riots was to reclaim some sense of professional integrity, that the silo took that from him too. And he tells Bernard that he can't control what Juliet means to people. He can try and control, he can try and do whatever he can, but he can't control what she means to people, and can't control what she means to him. And it was just a whole speech about the silo affecting his life. You can't control certain things, and people deserve to have the truth. And it was the definition of a speech for this rebellion, what this rebellion's foundation is on. We go back to Solo, who says his name's not actually Solo, that it's Cole Myers, but he was at a party once, or a concert or something, and someone, Russell's kid, overheard him say that he was Solo at the concert, and they give him that name, which now, given the information we learned in the episode, may be a stolen story of how the real Solo got his name. We'll talk about that more. But Russell's kid, again, we know Russell was the head of IT of this silo, so Russell's kid was near him, I guess. And now thinking about it, if Solo really was a kid that isn't this Solo, maybe Solo and Russell were friends. Especially if the actual Solo was part of IT. But anyways, we get Romeo and Juliet confirmed that that's how Juliet got her name. They just said the play. They said it twice, that Juliet had her name from the play, but now we've got confirmed that it's Romeo and Juliet. And it's interesting that in Juliet's silo, that Romeo and Juliet don't die, but in his, they do. So that's very interesting to me. But then here, Juliet starts to collapse. She doesn't feel well, and Solo goes and gets food. Something's wrong with Juliet. Then we go to Sims, getting appointed as judge in his new office, kind of muffled while he looks through the office. He smacks a file. He is not happy with this. We go to Carla, who is apprehended by Judicial, and the other two were found running on the stairs. And we go back to Kyle, who's back from the mines after one day in Bernard's office, and Bernard tells him that life expectancy in the mines is 5 years. That Meadows made it seem like Judicial was fair, cutting his sentence in half, but he would actually probably die anyways. But Bernard says he wants his mind to repair the hard drive that he had smashed, and I was like, bro, that was smashed to pieces by a hammer. Can we recover a hard drive? But I mean, I guess they can a little bit. But he said, between me and you weren't too off about how the Earth and the stars work and whatnot. And I mean, hearing that as Kyle, you're like, I mean, do they just know things they're not educating us about? But he's not going to be asking questions. He's not in a position. But Bernard here is using a fear of the mines and putting him back in the mines and telling him his life expectancy just to scare him into doing this for him. And he tells him he'll work harder than anyone else in IT because he wants to live more than 5 years. And I was thinking here that if I had access to Bernard's office and his hard drive, I mean, obviously I don't know what Lucas's actual feelings are and how bad the minds are, but I would destroy that hard drive. I would just absolutely destroy it to pieces and then vanish, you know. Maybe I mean, if I get killed, then whatnot, but I'm saying I would do that for the people. But he's helping Bernard. I would never help Bernard, but I guess that's just as a viewer. We don't know about Lucas's point of view. Then we go Sims, going back to janitorial, the secret area where they have the cams, and Sims kind of making sure that it's under wraps, everything's under wraps, because he can't handle this obviously not being the head of Judicial anymore, and he wants his control. Then we get Shirley and Knox running down the stairs, and a group of people stops them and say, hey, where are you running to? You guys look like some killers or something like that. And here I was like, okay, they don't know their faces yet, but they say they're just a couple trying to get back to their living quarters. But the riot sees they're armed, grabs them, starts to like kill them, almost like they're gonna kill them. But Sim's wife comes in Judicial uniform, says that the new Judge Sims, wants them I guess detained, not killed right here. Then we go back to Juliet, who we see as move spots, is what I was thinking of here, that she's completely in like a new place, even though Solo went to go get some food. Like, how's he gonna find her is what I was thinking here, but he does later. But she finds a suit design with a note on it saying that a missing helmet report right here pretty much is the summary. There's a missing helmet. Then we go to Sim's wife, who's actually letting Shirley and Knox go, kind of kicking some guy out of his little closet, saying that you may have just worked the night shift, but you're gonna go with your ex on 83. So sadly, she kicks him out for Shirley and Knox to kind of lay low in there. Then we go to Paul, who admits to Deputy Hank that he has this syndrome after Deputy Hank explains the conflict of his own friends being the ones that have violated the pact, and he has to enforce the pact and whatnot. Then we go to Shirley and Knox talking in these new living quarters and talking about the fact that every department probably thinks they keep it running, and in a way they do. IT does a lot of important stuff, and that actually just reminded me in season 1 they actually do say, Bernard says IT is what keeps the silo running, but we hear a lot more that mechanical keeps the silo running. So I mean, it really is, every job matters, but it's definitely a mechanical, because they can just shut the place down. But they explain, I guess Knox explains that he's sorry, that he just wanted to be respectful to Judicial first, go about it that way, not brute force, compared to Shirley, who wanted to just go brute force, violence, demand the truth. And they both admit that their methods were wrong, and now they need a new approach together. Deputy Hank tells Paul that he thinks that Shirley and Knox disobey the pact and whatnot, but they would never kill Judge Meadows. And at the same time, they are in the cafeteria. They yell at someone by the name of Frances, who is going with a hot meal. They question her and basically tell her that she's probably taking that meal to her uncle Patrick, who's hiding. They've been looking for Patrick Kennedy ever since he escaped the Molotov throwing. Then we go to a scene with Sims' wife and Sims together in bed, and basically this is the only scene I've questioned her integrity. I mean, she let them go twice. I mean, she let Juliet go once as well, and she just let Shirley and Knox go. But here she tells Sims that if he was in charge, that they would be in custody hours ago. And here I was like, they would be in custody right now if you didn't let them go. And two, like, she seemed like she was planting the seeds. Like, you can already tell Sims is pissed that he's not running Judicial, but her saying if you were in charge, they would have been in custody hours ago. It's like she's planting that in his mind to get him pissed. So I don't know if I'm reading into it, if that's, I would guess that's her just trying to plant some seeds for something to get him aggravated, or she purposely let them go to make it look like they need Sims to be head of Judicial. If she had let them go, like, if he was head of Judicial, they would have been arrested. But yeah, We'll go back to Juliet, who finds some names while she's looking for the suit that kind of directs to the main 3 people that were suspects of where the helmet was for this suit before it went to crap, I guess. The names are Jay Sunnell, Penn Marjorie, and Samuel Trina. And they are Trina, and she ends up going to Trina Samuel. I think that's her last name. Living quarters. Then we get Bernard, who looks disgusted here, this is her learning that Camille, Sims's wife, is the one that helped Knox and Shirley get free. Then we get to Juliet going into these living quarters that she has found, and she finds a picture frame that says Solo and Tiny on it. Tiny is Trina's nickname. And as it says listed on the past report that Juliet has looked at, and this is very interesting, and they play a very unsettling sound, which is interesting, which is just crazy. But here you can see this Solo kind of has like a facial scar or something, and here we get a little bit more of. In the last episode, Solo explained he knew this young girl, and that when this whole thing went down with the silo, that she had to have been 11 or 12. So how could he have known her? And he kind of goes away from the whole thing. But it definitely has to do with him embodying whoever this Solo is. This Solo must have really been close with this girl, and he's embodying it. We'll talk about this more later, but yeah. Then we go to Lucas, who has salvaged very little of the hard drive, but he explains that he managed to get a map of the silo that differs from their typical silo map, with lines coming from the outside to IT and Judicial, I believe he said, which that's all we get. But those lines, I'm guessing, are the power from the outside that we learned from Solo, that there was power from the outside. That went to IT. I'm guessing that's what those lines are, maybe wires, currents, something like that. But he also explains at the very bottom of the silo there's a tunnel that probably connects silos. We already know about the door at the very bottom, but yeah. Then he explains that he found a file, one file different from the others, that was written to someone's wife from Salvador Quinn. Now, this is the second time we've heard this name. Salvador Quinn was from last episode where Bernard knows the name. Mary, Judge Meadows, knows the name, and she says that Salvador Quinn, 140 years ago when he was head of IT, he was head of IT 140 years ago, that's crazy, that he sent a letter to his wife that was partly in code during the rebellion. Some sort of incident caused this or something, but Meadows says she deciphered it but doesn't say what it has. And then after reading this letter, she apparently vanished for 4 days, then quit, and we don't know where she went. But the letter goes into code. Bernard knows. He finishes the sentence for Lucas, and we're learning some more about the past of the silo. Then we go to Hank, who's bringing Paul to the secret place to find Patrick, bloody Patrick Kennedy. Paul says that Hank should go get a med kit, and Patrick Kennedy says he helped Nichols out, and Paul decides to pull out his page that he ripped from the Georgia book to show him, to give him his trust, because Patrick Kennedy asked for his gun. If he really trusts Patrick, he should give him his gun. Paul should give him his gun. But Paul thinks of a different way to show his trust. He shows him something that could get him fired, but not as dangerous as a gun. And here I was like, this page is just going to get bloody. He's full of blood, but okay. But Patrick tells him after seeing this page that he will tell him everything as long as he gets a med kit. And he looks at this page with almost like an admiring look, like kind of an astonishment, which is great. But we go back to Calvin's living quarters, where Calvin is taken by Knox and Shirley. Not taken, just kind of like held captive, I guess, tied to a chair. And they put on the porter uniforms and pretend that they are porters going down the stairs. But sadly, the Judicial found them because they were 2 people running together. And they definitely should have split up, because it would have been less suspicious. Then we get real big scene. I'll talk about this a lot. Maybe not. But we see this one frame here So Solo and Tiny with a real Cole Myers. Solo explains his name used to be Cole Myers. Real Cole Myers photo. I can't really read the other two. Help me out. Let me know in the comments, please. But something happened with this group of people, and for some reason he wanted to be part of this group of these people. I don't think he actually was. But something happened, and those bodies outside of the vault, I'm guessing, are these people. But Solo explains, he's like, hey, I got dinner. Somehow he found her. I guess he did. But she brings up Trina Samuels, or Samuel, whatever, to him, the name. And I was like, wow, she's bringing that up. And she explains that this was Solo's girlfriend. And he's like, oh, yeah, I haven't thought about her in a long time. And she says, well, of course you haven't. You're not Solo. And after this reaction, he kind of puts his hand on his face. I was like, oh, he's sad. I mean, because Solo's been great because I feel bad for him, but I also don't trust him. But she says, you're not IT's Shadow. You're not IT's Shadow. The real Solo is IT's Shadow. And we get confirmation of that whoever was next to IT, the head of IT's son, was with Solo, the actual Solo, who's IT's Shadow, which is good to know. But then he really freaks out, starts like kind of aggressing towards her and screams in her face, says, I am the head, I am IT Shadow, I am IT Shadow, my name is Solo and I'm IT Shadow. He screams that at her over and over again and says, don't you ever tell me otherwise. But after this, she kind of like is shaking because she's not feeling well and because he scared her. But she says she needs some air. She gets out, but then she starts to run. Like, obviously you're running, like he can hear that. And I was thinking, is this her plan to just run away from Solo from now on? Because now she's just going to be hunted throughout this silo. But I don't know for sure if that's what'll happen. But here I was thinking too, Juliet, why do you have to bring that up to him? He's obviously not stable. You can keep that information to yourself, but she does it. Then we go to Shirley and Knox, who found the spot where they can put the cable, and they can go, I mean, their plan is to attach the cable and then just go down, which is crazy. But the new head of Judicial guys here. He says, hey, I'm coming for you guys. They jump off, and when they land, the cable kind of catches them very aggressively. It's like very painful, but he starts to shoot off the cable as they try and climb their way up. But she shoots off the cable. It comes down, whips Knox in the back, kind of really badly cuts him. And then the Judicial guy unattaches the box and chucks it down at them as well. They barely dodge it, and they make it. And the Riots break through the barriers, and the Riots start to go crazy. Then Walker's just trying to get by. But Bernard then calls Sheriff Billings and say, hey, I'm sorry, this is your problem. People are going crazy down there at Mechanical. And he says, I can always count on you. And Paul's like, yes, you can always count on me to uphold the pact. Which I mean, we know he's saying that sarcastically. He's starting to doubt the pact. He knows they're lying about the death of Judge Meadows, about Georgia, whatnot. But then we go back to Juliet for a final scene where she's in these living quarters again. She gets the lights on. She's really not doing well. She's looking down. She's holding her arm. And then she kind of falls to her knees and looks at her arm on the bed. It's definitely infected. She needs something, antibiotic, something. It's definitely infected. And she checks under the bed to see a wrapped up thing, and it is the helmet that she has been looking for. She has found it, and then she gets up, she's going, and then I love this directing decision to go under the bed as we see her collapse in front of the camera. And here I was thinking, gosh dang it, she has found everything Solo needs to just get out of here and leave her. Like, she found the helmet for him and the suit. And she's knocked out, or she's unconscious. All he has to do is go get that helmet, go get that suit, and he can just escape and leave her behind. So I wonder if that's going to happen, something like that. But Solo's definitely going to be scary now. But yeah, I mean, that's the details I have today. I'll probably find a lot more in my next watches and next episode, and I'll be sure to bring them up there. But this is a longer video for sure. But thank you guys so much for watching. Have a good rest of your day. Goodbye.